Welcome to Life by Design, episode 375. Hey guys, welcome to the show. I'm excited today. I get to bring on one of my favorite people in the entire world. I'm here today with my wife, Dana. Dana, welcome to the show.
Hi guys, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, it's been a long time. I know we've done some podcasts and varying versions of the podcast with different episodes where we've had you, but it's been quite some time.
I actually think this might just be my third.
Third, all right.
Yes.
Well, I think you're going to hear from Dana more regularly. There's lots that she can add in terms of, especially when we talk about the kids. You know, we've got a few years under our belts now from a child raising perspective. And that's what we're going to talk about on today's episode is I want to make it super simple, make it really tactical. You know, what are some things, specifically 4 things that we can do to boost our children's brain? I think that that's an area that definitely we should be talking about more. I think a lot of people understand, make our kids healthy. But, you look at things like behavior or just even development, the brain is an area that just doesn't get enough attention. So in terms of, the what to do, let's get right down to it. I think there's 4 easy things. And as I said, we want to get into the tactical components. And these are things I would say we do pretty much every day, at least from the nutritional one, or maybe the first one. Let's talk about that first. So we're talking about omega-3 fats specifically. And one of the things we can do is make sure that there's adequate ratios of omega-3 to 6 fats. And the simple way to do that is, actually the real simple way to do that is eat really good food that has adequate omega-3 fats like grass-fed meats. And, the challenge is not everybody has access to those things. It doesn't mean that, we don't just give up meat, I think, in our perspective and things we've talked about, but you can supplement with a fish oil supplement.
Yes, our children every morning ask for their fish oil. They absolutely love it. We've done many videos in the past of them asking for their fish oils, which is adorable, Miss Andy. And the girls love their fish oil. They ask for it all the time. We've actually used to give them the little capsules, and now they just love just opening their mouth and we pour it in and on they go.
Yeah, they're like little birds. They want you just to squeeze it in. And then to the degree where in the past, we went with the capsules, which is just the same fish oil inside the gelatin cap. And it was fine. They would chew it up and they would like it, and it would be almost like a little candy for them. And, I think a lot of people listening might wonder how it tastes, and it does taste good. Now, don't ask Dana how it tastes. I don't think she's as big a fan as the kids are, but no. This is where the caps are helpful in that sense. But now, I remember with Andy, she used to, eat it. And then when we squirt it in, she'd want to drink water. I need water. I need a drink. She wanted to wash it down. And now she actually just takes it, no problem. And Scotty, she's a whole step further where she actually takes it and then wants more. More, all of them. She wants more. And so, more isn't necessarily better. So we're not suggesting that you just jam a bunch of fish oil in your kid's body and that's not going to make their brain exponentially healthier. It's really about making sure that there's an adequate ratio of omega-3s to omega-6s. And so we talked about how to add the 3s, fish oil, grass-fed meats. And then the flip side is also reducing the 6s. And this might even be a more important step, which is, getting rid of the processed food from their diet.
Yes.
Things like, treats, cookies, breads, even to a degree, nuts and seeds are high in omega-6s. And I'm not saying we shouldn't have any of those, but, you'll typically find the foods that are processed are much higher in these other types of fats, whereas foods that are, especially animal products, real food sources, grass-fed and so on, fish obviously would be one of them if your kids will eat fish. And you can find a source of fish that is not necessarily farmed in an ideal world, then you're going to have better omega-3 to 6 ratio. So it's not just, having 3s, it's also getting rid of the 6s by getting rid of the bad food choices. Another big one before we go to the second one is some of your seed oils. So I know a lot of people cook with canola oil or vegetable oil. Those would be some of the other sneaky sources where omega-6s would get in there. The other big one, I don't think anybody's going to deny this, and we can talk about some of the ways that we try and get more of this, but it's just daily exercise, daily activity. And I see with a lot of parents, it's it's easy to go to, and I mean, there's days where we're there for sure. It's easy to go to, let's watch a movie. It's the weekend, we're tired, we want to have a break. Let's watch a movie. And I know on the times where you push through that and we get our daily exercise or we go outside, I can see a huge change in the kids' behavior. And I mean, you're with them more than I am.
And that's why in our playroom for Christmas, we decided to get rings with a little pull-up bar. And they absolutely love it. They're always on it. They're swinging on it. They're exercising. Just the other day, I was doing my exercises with my kettlebells and not really recalling what the small ones are because they're in kilograms and I am American, so pounds, I don't know. But the girls actually grabbed my 2 small kettlebells and were doing the same exercises that I was doing and holding plank and all of that stuff. So, they see what you do and then they will do what you're doing. And, so we were watching TV shows and doing some exercising, and you can totally tell the difference in Andy. She's our 5-year-old. So I can see definitely days that if we have a little bit of a lazier day, that I look at her and I say, all right, come on, let's go. You have to do some burpees here. Let's do a little bit of running around, something like that. She is that type of child that needs that exercise. And I don't see that right now in our just turned 3-year-old. Could be her personality or could be she's just young. But Andy seems to be the more active one that actually thrives on exercise.
Well, I think one of the ways we can make this, more consistent is by making it cultural, meaning that it's just part of our family's culture that exercise is part of the requirements. And, especially as I said with Andy and now Scotty as well, and whether she likes it or not, she's going to be exercising and we build that into her routine. I think that's an important point for all parents is, yeah, it's great that maybe one child likes it and one doesn't, but it's no different than one child who likes healthy food and one who doesn't. It doesn't mean that the one who doesn't like healthy food gets away without eating it. And the same needs to be true with exercise. And I think too often exercise is not something that is consciously organized. Now we've got our sports and, the kids have dance and hockey and all those other things. And I'm sure lots of families do. But what happens in between those times? So I love that we have the trapeze and we've got the swing and all these things in the house. So even on a nice cold day, they can still go in there and they can do it, whether it's that or doing your workout, walking. I know Scotty wants to get picked up all the time and trying to teach her that, look, you can walk, let's go, let's walk. We did the walk down to the beach yesterday and it's a big, big hill. We went all the way down. She walked all the way up and it took us a long time. And she asked, why are we doing this more than once? But she did. She walked all the way up and it turned out to be something that, they'll just do if you encourage them to do it. The third thing we can do to help develop our children's brains just on a day-to-day basis comes down to how we're interacting with them in terms of games. And we were thinking about it in the pre-show, and I totally forget the name of this, and somebody can leave a comment on this post and share what this is actually called. But, the difference between playing with toys that don't encourage, say, creativity. I want to call them open loop versus closed loop, and I'm not sure that's the actual terminology. And Google tells me that it's not, so I'm guessing it's probably not. But things like a puzzle, right? Things that are encouraging them to be creative, to build building blocks. There's all kinds of toys the kids have at home that definitely fall within that. What's that company? Is it Melissa and Doug or Doug and Melissa? Yeah.
Melissa and Doug.
Okay, so I find that their toys are often open loop or whatever we're going to call them for the sake of the show, and getting them to think about things that allow them to be more creative, where you end up seeing toys that they love it because it was on a TV show or a commercial or YouTube with kids now in terms of these days, that doesn't necessarily stimulate a ton of creativity. And I know because they're still sitting in the toy box.
Right. I was going to say that they don't really play with those.
Right.
And we love to encourage them to be creative. We love even asking them questions, like even the way to both of our children really young knew and know how to spell their names because we used it as a game. Right. I would put it in a song. So they would just learn all that. They know our address because we put it in a song. So they literally go around. That's a game. It's a game, a sneaky game that we play with them that they have no idea. But they know all of the important things because we put a game to them.
Yeah, and I think that, just stimulating the brain on a day-to-day basis through, as you said, games. They think they're just, having fun like they would, no different than playing with a doll or choosing another game that they have. But instead of it just being something that's a big lump, they actually have to engage with it and become creative or solve problems. And, even doing the alphabet or spelling their name or counting numbers, or, there's tons of these, and you can Google these guys and find them. But I think it's more about, again, just back to the exercise, is creating a culture that this is what the norm is. Not, oh man, I don't think we're spending enough time with our kids. We're going to do this one day in terms of a game. It's something that has to become consistent, just like any of these, whether it be the fish oil, whether it be our daily exercise, or whether it be these open loop games, as we'll call them. The fourth one is one that for some people might be a no-brainer. And I know a lot of people listening to our podcast, they are, people who have engaged in corrective chiropractic, people who are part of our practice or worldwide. And just the idea of brain development, neurological health, it just makes sense to them. For others, I know there's lots of new listeners to the podcast. And the concept of, chiropractic as it relates to the nervous system is new. Most people think of chiropractic in a very traditional sense. If something hurts, there's an ache or a pain, they tend to use chiropractic in that way. And that's not a bad thing. But the goal in a corrective chiropractic approach is to really identify and correct underlying structural problems that could be impairing the development of the brain, the stimulation of the brain. And Dana, you have a unique really perspective for two reasons. One, you're the wife of a corrective chiropractor, but you're also the daughter of a corrective chiropractor, meaning you've really had your spine checked for your whole life. And, getting cared for by a corrective chiropractor just kind of been second nature to you.
Yes, it actually, I don't have that story that a lot of people have about, so I
like
wasn't a miracle. So I wasn't under chiropractic care, and then I was, and it was this miracle. It's always been a part of my life. I think there was many benefits to it throughout my life, throughout even, my birth with my children. I think my husband says I am a champ, but I definitely was under chiropractic care during even the birth process. I, was like, please check me, make sure my body is running at its ultimate, that, that my blood flow is going where it needs to go, and that even when the girls were born, it's like, please check them. Andy was one that needed a checkup because she was coming out of the birth canal and got a little bit stuck. Scotty was this absolute bullet, and she's a spitfire in personality, and she came out super fast, super sleek. So she actually didn't have any corrections needed for a while after birth. So really though, right after birth, my children are checked to make sure that their body was at its potential.
Right. Well, and again, the brain requires input, and that input is vastly directed to the brain by motion of the body. And a lot of those sensors and receptors are embedded in the spine. And that's really the connection, is when the spine doesn't move well, when there's a problem with the spine. And that doesn't necessarily mean that the child has symptoms. Our children get checked regularly, as do lots of children in our practice. And the goal is to identify underlying problems that could be inhibiting the way the brain's working and developing long before they become serious problems that, as we're seeing many of the adults in our practice, are a much bigger deal to correct. So, you had that blessing in a sense that was just your culture. I know we keep coming back to this word. It's a culture. Maybe the lifestyle is a term a lot of people know it as. And what we want to create for you and your kids is this brain healthy lifestyle. So let me recap for us, guys. We've got omega-3 fats. So fish oil is a great thing to do every single day. A nice pharmaceutical grade fish oil. And there's lots of different brands. Daily exercise, not just I went and played hockey or I played soccer. There needs to be more consistent movement throughout the day. Remember, your kids are sitting in a desk all day. They're not moving enough, which is also one of the reasons why the spine gets impaired, is simply sitting, and some of these postural, structural issues that are, reinforcing the negative position for the kids. And then playing games, open loop games. I know that's probably not the name. And then getting our spine checked. So guys, thank you, Dana. I want to thank you for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening and joining the drive to 1 million families worldwide living life by design.